Australia just need five runs.
And you know what's going to happen? He's 195, Maxwell. Go for 6 to bring up 200 and win the game.
Everybody here's on their feet. And didn't make it! It does make it! Ben Maxwell! Unbelievable! The most remarkable thing you'll probably ever see in cricket. Staggering! Absolutely mind-blowing! What a win! And he should not have to walk off the park, he should be carrying off.
Absolutely mind-blowing week we had in cricket, and that was Ian Smith, Ricky Ponting, and Shane Watson out there. Welcome to another episode of SEU Weekly episodes of cricket, pro wrestling, and football all covered in one. And we will have a discussion for the next so many minutes on a fabulous week for cricket and wrestling. Do you have anything on football? Yes, I guess we do. The goggles guy. Okay,
yeah,
so
we absolutely do. Football is nowhere taking a backseat, not to WWE at the very least.
We don't. We are skipping UCL.
yeah, but I was watching this live. Maxwell go absolutely bonkers the other night, and I literally had no words at all while I was watching it with family. I was like having my hands on my mouth. I was thinking of how a normal human being could have this range of strokes that he was playing the other day with so much of a physical limitation. His entire body was cramping up. I mean, Kriska, he basically had cramps by, at the time when almost 100 plus runs were required.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, it's all common knowledge now that they had lost 7 wickets for 91, right? And around, almost 100 runs were required, and he started cramping up, pulling muscles, and then he was twitching. He was in a lot of pain. He basically was trying to, tell the umpire that he can still go on. There was the physio who ran in a few times. Then he was basically saying that, I can't make it. And there are, post-match interviews and other stuff, basically with the physio. The physio tells us that the physio actually encouraged Maxwell to actually play on because Pat Cummins was giving an option of Maxwell going back to the dressing room and coming back again after a while. And in cramps like those, the physio would basically advise that they can never come back. Once you go back and get into the tea, done for the time.
He had to
probably get up only the next
play through the pain, right? That was the only option. And throughout the week, there have been a lot of debates and discussions about where does this innings stand in terms of, one of the greatest performances in one-day international. And without a doubt, it is top 3, right? And the reason I say this is not because I'm an Australia fan, but considering the variables that was put in front of Maxwell, right? So for him to have pulled off that feat with any one of that would have been spectacular. Say your team is 7 down, you're chasing a healthy 290, and you have less than 100 on the board. If you had scored a double 100 there, that itself is insane. Leave a double 100. If you took your team to a win from there, that is bonkers from that position. He did that.
I think I would probably say, it's probably the best I have ever watched anywhere.
Yeah.
People say it's the best in white ball cricket because white ball cricket, given the kind of ebbs and flows that it has across 50 overs, probably, yes, it's probably the best white ball knock I have seen. And probably the top 5 or 10, including test formats as well. I would, go on to say that. And what makes it special is not just the cramping and the score situation. I think there are a lot of factors which made this really tough knock to have. Tough ask from a batter's point of view. So Pat Cummins supporting him. There was no other batsman. One, and he had to be there. And the secondly, the kind of strokes with 2 feet planted there, and he was just able
planted
to
on the ground, just rootless.
And VS, if you were not aware, he had a fall from a golf cart like a couple of days back before that, and he missed a match because of
Yeah,
that.
I was aware. I was aware.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and he
Yeah.
had so I hit his head and sort of had a concussion, and it was a concussion break that he had. And the kind of strokes that were played the other night, I felt like he was teeing off straight from a golf course. So just the swing of arms with feet firmly
Yeah.
planted on the ground. Yeah, and I also heard a few other cricket experts, former players, talk about the fact that a lot of these Australian folks, they are really well versed in multi sports during their teenage years, and they play tennis, football, and all these games, and try to do well in all those, and then get into one of those and make it to the national side. And Maxwell apparently was really good with tennis, cricket, and a little bit of Australian football, I hear, and he also is a big golf fan. So I think that's what contributes to a person's fitness, especially in times like these when you have your body not really helping out.
Yeah, it's
And that
also it's
also
one
kind
thing
of
to be of
implies why he can swing his arms and he can swing it long and swing it hard, because golf, tennis, all those
Yeah,
games, they require a very strong pair
yeah.
of hands, and that's exactly
yeah,
what he showed. But Khandalf, I would say the cramp factor and him having suffered concussion a couple days earlier, aspects, they only add to the sheer cinematic factor of the innings.
yeah,
Take away all of that, take away the fact that he was cramped, take away the fact that he had a concussion couple days before, that innings was insane. I would say it was one of the top two ODI chases all time, and it
yeah,
certainly ain't number two,
yeah, yeah. No,
because
absolutely.
absolutely
Yeah.
mind blowing
Out
stuff.
of out of
The
curiosity,
situation
is
where he
number
took
one
the team from,
Dhoni's?
and
What
No,
are
I think
the
the
innings?
number one by most people's standards. I think they were comparing it with Kapil Dev's
Couple
175
days,
in the
175. Yeah,
1983 World
yeah,
Cup
yeah.
against Zimbabwe, where India were like 18 odd or something for
Mm,
6 wickets,
yeah.
and he hit a 175 to take them to a respectable total. But mind you, though, that was batting
First
first.
innings.
And second was the comparison that came with Viv Richards. I think 180 plus runs, famous
Yeah.
Viv Richards innings, 189 or something. That was the record for a long time in one-day cricket until Saeed Anwar broke it in Chennai
194.
against India. Yeah, when he hit
There was also
190.
that Michael Bevan Classic, right? When Australia
Correct.
were
Absolutely.
36.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the thing about all of these innings is basically that most of them, almost all of them, except the Michael Bevan one, came in batting first,
Yeah.
and under no pressure, but just a pressure to take your team
Right.
to a
So it's
respectable.
the layers to it, right? So like I was
Yeah,
saying at the beginning, 7 down is one. Then you have a
yeah.
tail ender batting alongside you,
Tail
whose
end of
career
batting.
average is 12. So I don't think
Exactly.
Pat Cummins best was even like over 40 or something. At which point it needed for Australia to be taken home, you needed somebody who was gonna put up like 50 odd runs at the least in a 200-run partnership. But the fact
Yeah,
that it was a contribution of 12 and I think 202 in a partnership is insane. Then the cramps, and
absolutely.
then the bowling lineup. Let's not forget how good Afghanistan had been up until that point
Yeah,
throughout the tournament, right? A world-class lineup of Rashid and Mujib, and if you factor in all of these, like I think that is what makes it so special. It just
yeah,
needed
yeah.
one or two of those ingredients to be considered an all-time great, but it just had five or six of that.
Absolutely. And look at that stroke right now, right? Like, I mean, on
Yeah,
screen, what you see is basically him teeing off. It's just like a
yeah,
golf tee. And he would have probably hit that like 200, 300 meters down or maybe
yeah,
more. And you spoke about Afghanistan's bowling, right? And it's not really an ordinary attack. They had some of the best bowlers in probably world cricket as far as spin is concerned. Rashid Khan is probably the
yeah.
best one going around. He can be on par with the top 2 or 3 spinners in the world. Forget Afghanistan. And there were a lot of people who were basically saying that Afghanistan were feeding Maxwell, bowling in his arc into the slot and things like that. I do not agree one bit with that. And one, because it's totally disrespectful for when someone achieves something of this magnitude. It's like basically saying that, someone who tops an exam and other things, it's basically like saying that, okay, the question paper was perhaps a little easier during the year that you wrote the exam. And probably also saying that, okay, the peers that wrote the exam with you are not as intelligent as you, and hence you actually won the contest or something like that. It's basically discrediting an achievement, and that's what probably some of them are doing, where they say that, there are a lot of ifs and buts. If only Afghanistan bowled a little wider, slower onto the offside, they could have made him stretch despite the cramps. They did. To be honest, they did. I watched the match entirely ball by ball, and they did try those tactics as well. What Maxwell did was he was just trying to leave those balls or miss them genuinely, or he just hit them, dabbed them for
bagged a few on the offside. It's not like
Exactly.
Maxwell is a bad offside player or anything.
Exactly.
I don't know why people think.
Yeah, and my guess is that these people would have just watched the highlights, and of course the highlights package is always full of sixes and fours, and they would have seen him just feed. But then Maxwell was a kind on that night where he was actually manipulating the captain and the field and the bowling lines and lengths, and he hit all the bad balls. That's what exactly happened. So what a
Before,
night, unforgettable. Yeah.
before we move on, I also want to take a moment and celebrate Pat Cummins's contribution to the chase. Right, this is a guy who has swagged bowling lineup so many times, be it IPL or we saw in the Ashes. I think even earlier in one of the World Cup games, you saw him bat at like some 120 plus strike rate or something. So I'm not contradicting my earlier opinion that Pat Cummins averages 12, but he is somebody who comes
Who
in
can?
late. We have discussed about this, right?
Yeah,
So when the
yeah.
situation demands, he knows how to pack a few balls off the ground and get his team to a very respectable total. And the
In
kind of
fact, after a
composure
point,
that he showed
after a
to
point
face,
during Maxwell's innings, right? I was wondering why Cummins is not even trying to help Maxwell out by hitting a few for six or something like that. Bring in his Kolkata Knight Riders avatar and just play a few shots. But then I think in hindsight, it all probably made sense. Cummins was probably waiting for Maxwell to do his thing, get them to the total as close as
get a
possible.
little closer, exactly. And then
Yeah.
even if Maxwell gets out, he would have taken on the role of
Then
the
he would have
decision.
gone on. Yeah, absolutely.
Thankfully, it never came to it. And I think that's also the sheer luck, right? To go 200 runs where Cummins didn't have to face the first ball of an over. Somehow, at the end of every over, either Cummins would face a dot ball and give the strike back to Maxwell, or Maxwell would like rally everything he had in his arsenal and take a single. I don't think for a good 10 or 15 overs, Cummins even had the strike, which would explain,
Absolutely. Yeah.
at the beginning
And
of
there
the
was a
over.
moment in the game when they were like 30, 40 runs away from the target. And it was the last ball of the over. And Maxwell absolutely couldn't move by then. He couldn't walk. He couldn't run. Without pain, of course. But and these guys were not anticipating a single. They were expecting a six. But then Maxwell just very intelligently dabbed it towards one, I think towards mid-wicket or something, and then started walking fast. And the fielder was taken by surprise because they didn't expect Maxwell to run. And the fielder was actually caught sleeping. So, that was very intelligent. And somehow it happened. But one for the ages, something which no one could comprehend. We'll be probably talking about it in reference for the years to come.